We got Gators Breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC, coming at you right here day after. Not a lot of sleep. Well worth it. 48-20 Gators over Kentucky, and what was supposed to be a close game was not. It turned during the week. Florida starts the week as the favorites. By the time we get to Saturday, Kentucky's the favorites, and much like the UCF game a couple of weeks ago, close underdogs, and Florida blows the opponent out. Good stuff here. That was fun. that was fun. Fun day in Gainesville, homecoming, celebrating the 1984 team. The tailgate at Harmonic Woods. Never lost a tailgate. A lot of fun. Thanks to everybody who stopped by, said hello. I know some of you reached out Friday, Saturday, coming from all over the country, from Oregon, from California, from Nashville. Everybody stopping in. You got a Gators Breakdown koozie. You know, I got those hanging out there. Give those out if you stop by, say hello. A really fun time, and then, of course, capped off by the game there for the Gators, and certainly an explosive Gators team, both sides of the ball, and seeing what DJ Lagway was able to do in his first SEC start. Jadan Baugh gets started running back, goes beast mode, and defense creating turnovers, defense playing well in the trenches, which has been an issue against Kentucky. Put it together. Put it together. We all know what's ahead of this team, but going into a bye week, look, everybody, you listen to me long enough. If you're here live, look, very critical. I've always been here on Gators Breakdown, but we'll also give credit where credit is due. Who knows what the future holds? But I want to live in this game, this moment, this weekend, bye week coming up. We all know about November, but that was fun last night. That was fun. So everybody hit that like button, subscribe right here on Gators Breakdown. Plenty to talk about. Yeah, I know you like the result. Well, I hope most of you like the result, but like this video as well, right here on YouTube. Subscribe right here on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. And join Gators Breakdown Plus. Link is in the description there. Access to that Discord server. Ad-free episodes of Gators Breakdown as well. So, fun day in the swamp. 48-20 over Kentucky. And guys, this is the first SEC home win since last season against Vanderbilt. That just kind of crossed my mind here on this Sunday morning. Oh, and the coffee tastes so much. Coffee tastes so much better after a win. Now, that doesn't sound as bad as it does on the surface. Only 2 SEC home games since beating Vanderbilt last year, Arkansas and Texas A&M. Arkansas last year, of course, Texas A&M this year. But still, it's been forever since we've been able to celebrate an SEC home win with these Florida Gators. So, of course, explosive plays in the passing game. Jadan Baugh, excited to see. We didn't sure who was going to get the start at running back, but he goes beast mode, and just a defense that continues to play well. And look, we know the offenses that Florida has faced the last few weeks. We'll get a much better matchup coming up, but still, for where this defense had been, coming from the depths before the first bye week, continues to play well, and this one getting turnovers. We don't have to hear about this Kentucky streak any longer. Now, for a series that's been fairly close and competitive, the last 2 games have not been. There's been stoppings for each team. Last year for Kentucky, this year for Florida. And of course, this time it was in the swamp, and the Gators treat the home crowd with a much-needed win. Much needed. These programs, Florida, Kentucky, we previewed it last week. Both coming in 3-3, very similar teams. Felt like they had let some games get away. Kentucky, probably more of a roller coaster because they've had the really low of getting blasted by South Carolina and then beating an Ole Miss team, playing Georgia very tough. You didn't know what Kentucky team you were going to get, but you didn't really know what Florida team you were going to get too, only because of the opponent. You hadn't played. We knew Florida had been better, but this was still another test, another check mark for Billy Napier, just because Kentucky's pretty much controlling. controlled his offense. We'll get into that, but this was a lot of people were. I listened to on the way to Gainesville, and of course throughout the week too. Listened to a whole bunch of preview podcasts, national podcasts. So look, when doing Gators Breakdown, I would say the only bad thing, besides missing some family time, of course. Shout out to my wife and daughter one more time for all that. But I miss so much of the national, college football just in general. That's the only bad thing of doing Gators Breakdown. But have to catch up somehow. So listen to a whole bunch of national. Josh Pate, of course. Being at the top for me. The guys at Solid Verbal as well. There's kind of my two go-tos and Athlon. So I'll rotate between those. And then listening to this game, there's a lot of it was a fork in the road game for both these programs. A win here would go a long way for the rest of the season, but probably much more so for Florida because we know what November holds. But both programs coming in very similar in a kind of crossroads, fork in the road for Billy Napier in some ways and for Mark Stoops in some ways. Kind of different ways, of course. Mark Stoops isn't getting fired at Kentucky after, this year if it does not continue to go well. Billy Napier, that's in play, of course, still. So a very important game for both head coaches, coming in to, getting ready for a November stretch coming up, and Florida comes out on top. It was just a game. If Billy Napier, and we can get into this later on too, has any future at Florida, you had to have this one. Hard to see any kind of future if you didn't have this one. First of all, it's a barometer game. Kind of puts you where, kind of lets you know where you're at. And a week after coming off a disappointing loss to Tennessee, this team really did not have to buy in. They really didn't. They're still buying in. They're still playing hard. And that's how you get a 48-20 result. But, they had to have this one. Had to have this one if you're Billy Napier to have somewhat glimpse of a future there. And it's now, much like the bye week a few weeks ago, you got some good feelings heading into the bye week. Now, we know it's different this time. That November stretch will determine the season. And perhaps Billy Napier's time at Florida. But we got plenty of time for that. Gators sitting at 4-3 right now. And it hurts just a bit more when you pair the Kentucky result with the Tennessee result last week. Because if you don't give that game away, we're looking at a 5-2 Florida team. No, that's not where Florida's at. We're going to take a look at reality. That is a game Florida let get away. They should not have let get away. You get penalized for that. This should be a 5-2 Florida team in a lot of ways, but they're not. That's how close the margins are in this crazy conference this year. There's a lot of parity in the SEC. And guys, I don't know if you saw the stats. This is the first time since 2007 that all the teams in the conference have a loss before November. And of course, that's after Georgia controls Texas and gets the win in Austin. So, you could be looking at a 5-2 Florida team and an already crazy SEC. Does it get crazier? Does Florida make a statement in November? The statement wouldn't have mattered if you would have lost this one against Kentucky. So there we go. That's kind of just where we're at right now. But let's take a look at this game. Plenty more to get into as well. We'll take a look at some key points here. And then we'll go drive by drive. Well, not drive by drive, but we'll go through the game a bit one more time. And some more notes at the end. Get to your comments as well. Before we get to some keys, let's get into the comments here. Kevin Reed, first comment, and I absolutely love it because it's the next game already. In some ways, it's already game week. Not technically, but in some ways because it's Florida's next game. Kevin Reed with the first comment in here. Beat Georgia, go Gators. Absolutely. First of all, it's always beat Georgia. But I love it. This is not a look ahead. This is our next game anyway. And it's like I said, and you guys know my hatred and passion of hatred for Georgia. It's always there. So, Harrison, man, thanks for hopping in again. Go Gators. Travis says go Gators as well. Hey, shout out to Nathan Pate as well. He's a happy Gator in Kentucky. Big thing that's big for him, and I believe is Nathan's birthday as well. He's in the Gators Breakdown Plus Discord letting us know about his birthday. So happy birthday, Nathan. Glad you got a victory to go back home to in Kentucky. Casual says go Gators. Casual Carolina Fishing. Buck Wade says go Gators. Casual Carolina Fishing comes back in one more time, and we will get to more of this. But I do want to share this. I am blown away by the turnaround the defense has made. It is absolutely a turnaround. That's what I don't care for the opponents and where they are at offensively. We have seen this Gator defense, while a bad defense, not look great against bad offenses before. They have looked good against bad offenses. Do what you're supposed to do. You guys know I'm a big proponent of that. Do what you were supposed to do. Florida found something in the bye week. Much more aggressive defense. Much more in tune defense. Tackling, physicality. It's all there right now. Now we know what's coming up, but do what you're supposed to do. Look, they had to start somewhere. They had to start somewhere. And this was a good test. You know, after the bye week, it may be pretty fortunate for Florida that they had some offenses like this. Don't get me wrong. I would have loved to have proven it against a balanced attack like a Georgia, against a Texas, against an LSU. These offenses that they have played the last few weeks really rely on the run game to get their offense going. But that's also at the same time where this defense has struggled the most going into the first bye week. UCF did not run the ball. Tennessee did not run the ball. Kentucky did not run the ball. So we know they are a better defense. No doubt about it. We'll get into some stats that show just how much better they were against what Kentucky has faced so far this year and what Kentucky's been able to do so far this year. HB, poor version of Kentucky, sure. Said that all week coming in as well. Plenty of bad ref calls since Stoops ballistic. Okay, well, it wouldn't have made a difference in the game. Going to beat UGA. I thought so. Nobody's claiming Florida's going to beat Georgia, so I don't know what kind of don't know what you're trying to show here. But we will enjoy this one. You do not have to. Scott says 20. Scott 0020 says team hasn't quit. Absolutely. Yeah, saw it last week versus Tennessee. And look, that would have been another time to maybe kind of pack it in, just because you, in a lot of ways, felt like you had given that game away. And there could have been the mindset that, hey, no matter how hard we play, no matter what we do, we can't get over the hump. And it would have been, I think, easy to fall in. And look, I think a lot of this stuff gets overblown. Most teams don't pack it in. Most teams don't. Even if it's going bad, they don't pack it in. But there's been, after season 1 of Billy Napier, after season 2 of Billy Napier, and the way the season ended last year, then the way the season started this year, and you get to this point, like I said, that Tennessee game, I think does tell me a lot. I don't know how many more wins this team is going to have. I don't. No, I don't think any of us know what the future holds for this team right now. But we can say, there have been moments this team could have packed it in, could have been second guessing their coaching staff, could have been second guessing themselves. We've seen it. We all know what the benchmarks are, and this team's still going out there and playing hard. Now, we know it's got to equate to wins if Billy Napier wants to save his job. It doesn't matter how hard they play. But at least the possibility is there because they are playing hard, because they haven't packed it in. And it was, it's fun to see. It's fun to see. I mean, at the same time, you guys know, we have all said it. There is a certain culture Billy Napier has built. It's not a winning culture. It doesn't mean it's a bad culture. It all counts for wins. That's what we know it's got to count towards eventually. But the culture that's there, at least, is a no quit culture. Doesn't necessarily have to equal wins. We all hope it does at some point. But for now, the reason they are in this, the reason there's a possibility, because they haven't given up. Chris hops in. Yeah, man, thanks. He says, well, great to meet you at the tailgate yesterday. Chris flew all the way in from Oregon for his first Gator game. Appreciate your hospitality. Game was fun. Glad I got to experience the swamp during a game like this. I mean, that's what it's about. Like I said, there another thing about the whole quote unquote toxic fan base that I just can't stand. We got fans flying in from all over the country. Some of them their first game, Gator game overall. Some of them their first Gator game in the swamp. You'd love to send them home with a performance like this. And thankfully, get that night game atmosphere. You get the won't back down and the we are the boys under the lights and phones going off with the flashlights and stuff. I mean, of course, that is a whole lot funner when Florida has a win. Okay, I'll come back to some of this because we'll try to relate it to what we talk about. Come back to one more of these. Matthew Walker, Orange and Blue Football Coverage says, facts, Dave, a 4-game win streak to a 5-2 spot might have gotten Florida a spot in the top 25 too. Probably, because Miami's getting a lot of respect. Texas A&M is getting a lot of respect. Don't get me wrong. I still don't like the outcome of those games and how they turned out. But if you get that win against Tennessee and you're 5-2, yeah, Florida probably should be ranked at that point. You're probably barely in the top 25. I know, like I said, listen to Josh Pate. I know his power poll, his JP poll has Florida 22nd, 23rd, 24th, somewhere around there. I know a lot of people are going to be surprised about that. And I don't have to explain that poll because Josh does it so well and still gets bombarded about what it really means. So, yeah, I mean, there's an avenue there for Florida. It stings, especially after seeing Tennessee beats Alabama. They don't get me wrong. I don't think Tennessee or Alabama are great versions of themselves. Tennessee's offense, what was their third game in a row? They didn't score in the first half. Bama is nowhere near what they showed in the first half versus Georgia. But with the way that it still could work out, those could be better teams in the country, but they're still not better version of themselves. But it still would have given you a 5-2 point right now with some better feelings in the bye week. But yeah, I mean, there's a good chance for it to be ranked. Okay, I will come back to some of this because some of this is looking ahead before I want to look ahead before. All right, I'll come back. Let's get to the game. Florida scored its most points, 48, against a Power 4 opponent in the Napier era, and eclipsed 45 points for the third time this season. This is the second time in SEC play for the Gators. But one more time, Florida scored its most points, 48, against a Power 4 opponent in the Napier era. Florida scored its most points in the quarter, 24, in the Napier era in the second quarter. So even early on, we saw it after bogging down in the red zone, an explosion in the second quarter for the Gators. And then look, remember coming into this game, these were Kentucky's defensive numbers. And look, this was the matchup. Me personally, some of you out there were as well. But me personally was looking forward to the most was what could Florida's offense, especially in DJ Lagway's first SEC start, could something finally be done to crack Kentucky's defense versus Billy Napier's offense? So these were the numbers coming in, and then I will compare it to what happened. Coming into the game, Kentucky was 4th in the country in total defense, 3rd in the SEC, only giving up 251.5 yards a game. Florida had 476. So 225 more yards than Kentucky on average had given up. Kentucky 9th in the country, 4th in the SEC coming in scoring defense, giving up 14.5 points per game. I've already said the final score a few times. You guys know it. Kentucky, 14.5 points per game given up. Florida scored 48. Now that includes the Cormani pick 6, of course. Okay, take it down to 41. But they were giving up 14.5. Florida scores 41. 10th in the country, 3rd in the SEC, giving up 89.3 rushing yards a game. 89.3 coming in. Florida finished with 197. Over 100 yards difference. Kentucky was 13th in the country, 3rd in the SEC in passing yards allowed, with 162.2 yards a game. Florida passed for 279. This is the Kentucky defense that held Georgia to 262 total yards and 13 points, and Ole Miss to 353 total yards and 17 points. So Georgia, 262 versus Kentucky, Florida with 476. Ole Miss with 353, Florida with 476. Don't get me wrong. Don't use the translator proper here. That'll get you in trouble. We all know that, especially in this wacky, crazy SEC that we're seeing right now. But it gives you a barometer of what Kentucky was able to do against maybe better offenses, but probably better offenses, more consistent offenses at least. And we'll see what happens when we see more of DJ Lagway. But Georgia's offense, not where they have been. Ole Miss's offense in SEC play, not the greatest. Definitely not living up to potential. We saw Jackson Dart really holding that offense back. So compared to, what are supposed to be better offenses coming into the season of Georgia and Ole Miss, Florida laid it to Kentucky much more than those schools did. Great job of stretching out the Kentucky defense was a key of mine as well. We just kind of know they don't really give up explosives, or they didn't give up explosives. Maybe have to be a lot of dink and dunk down the field. Wait on you to make that mistake. Lagway had that one interception. But great job of Florida's offense stretching the Kentucky defense out and have them worry about and stopping, defending the deep ball. Coming into the game, this was something I really wanted to look for, and I had to pinpoint it to preview because we know Lagway's potential. And we knew the explosive passing game was going to have to have an appearance. Maybe not as much as it did, but it would have to have an appearance if Florida was going to break the trend of Kentucky's defense shutting them down. Kentucky had only given up 2 passes of at least 40 yards coming into the game. Only 2 passes of at least 40 yards coming into the game. Guys that gave up 5. 2 coming in, they left with 7 because Florida added 5 more passes of at least 40 yards. They had given up 0 passes of at least 50 yards and gave up 2. So while a true freshman quarterback, and while we expect, and we've chronicled it, the up and down, the roller coaster that you're probably going to get with DJ Lagway, we knew what the good could be in this offense and DJ Lagway paired together. And it made such a difference for against a defense that does not give up explosives. Explosives won this game for the Florida offense. And if you look at coming into the game, wasn't really supposed to be there. And it was. So look, it just opens up the offense, really helped Florida in the areas they have struggled against Kentucky, and helped in the trenches as well. Florida was able to have some success on the ground against Kentucky defense, and pairing that with an explosive passing game. And we'll get into just how special, a lot of you already know here since we're coming at you on Sunday, but just how special the day was for true freshman running back Jadan Baugh. We'll get into that later on. We're talking about trenches on defense too. And we go back to last year, and oh my, that was not pretty. we all have nightmares of Ray Davis still running over Florida defenders last year. Not this year. Good turnaround for this defense just a year later and in season as well from what we had seen earlier this year. Kentucky's leading rusher, Demi Sumo Karngbe, was only averaging 4.6 yards a carry, so nothing exceptional for Kentucky, but 4.6 yards a carry on 82 carries for 320 yards. Well, he left Gainesville with only 39 yards and averaging 3.9 yards a carry. Average 4.6 coming in, only had 3.9 against the Gators. Well below his 4.6. Kentucky come in running the ball 153.3 yards a game. Left below that with 144 against the Gators. Passing offense came in with 168.3 yards a game for Kentucky. Left with 165, so all below their average. And that was them throwing the ball much more than they really want to because they found themselves down. That's what you wanted to do. That's what we pinpointed last week. We've watched enough of Kentucky this year. Brock Vandegrift, nothing special. If you could put him in forceful passing situations, you were going to be able to take advantage, or you should have been able to take advantage, and Florida did. Total offense, they came in 321.7 yards a game. They were held below that to 309 by the Gators. All that while the Gators getting 3 interceptions. Florida posted its first 3 interception game against Florida posted its first 3-game interception game since November 28th of 2020 against Kentucky. So last time Florida had 3 interceptions was against the same program all the way back in 2020. The Gators posted multiple takeaways for the second straight game. Florida has registered a takeaway in 6 of 7 games for a total of 9 on the season. We know how much of an emphasis it was. Florida's getting more turnovers. Surpasses interception total from last season has Florida already. Only 3 interceptions last year. 3 against Kentucky puts it at the total of 6. So in just one game, Florida was tied already with how many interceptions they had already created last year. 3 in one game. Florida has got 3 more interceptions than they had all of last year. Just one more sign of a defense that is getting better, turning the corner. Let's get to the game a little bit. Let's get to the game. Florida gets the ball first, of course. And we see DJ Lagway starting at quarterback. We also see Jadan Baugh starting at running back. The first team in program history, and is the first FBS program to start true freshmen at quarterback and running back so far this season. First time in program history for Florida, starting a quarterback and a running back that are both freshmen. Got off to like a start that like, oh no, because we saw it last week too, and the red zone issues. Florida started at their own 27. Lagway runs for 13 to the 40, looking for that deep shot. You could tell right away that Florida was going to try and take that deep shot with DJ Lagway and his receivers. He smartly took it down, but he ran for 13 there. First pass was nearly intercepted, so it was like, okay. All right, calm it down a little bit, Lagway. 3rd and 5 at their own 45. Lagway finds Trey Wilson deep down to the 15, a gain of 41. So already on the first drive, you saw an attempt for an explosive play down the field, and then you actually got one later on in the drive. Kentucky didn't give up a whole bunch of those, and already on the first drive, you saw one. Get the 1st and goal. Lagway was sacked on 2nd down. Play action, nobody was open. On 3rd and goal from the 11, passes batted away by Kentucky. Gators have to settle for a field goal, so the red zone issues from last week against Tennessee kind of showing up once more to get this game started. 3-0 Gators. Had some good on the drive, had some dangerous on the drive, but at least you come out, DJ Lagway's first SEC start. At least you come away with some points there. Kentucky, their first drive, started on their own 25. And the story here is Sumo Kongbe, the Kentucky running back, it was 2nd and 8, had a 15-yard gain. And we just talked about him a little bit and his struggles in this game. On the first drive, he had a 15-yard run. That would be his longest run of the whole night. The Florida give up a explosive run to Sumo Kongbe on the first drive of the game. Not much more after that. It was 3rd and 8 a couple plays later at the 45. Florida stacks the line, drops some guys into coverage. The simulated pressures would play a factor all night for the Florida defense. Pass gets zinged in by Vandegrift. It falls incomplete. 5 plays on the first drive for Kentucky and a punt. You got a couple of punts, one for each team. Like as I said, you can tell Florida's defense right here. Getting Vandegrift in passing situations, stacking the line, simulating pressure. He had no idea who was coming, who was dropping. And look, Florida wasn't getting sacks. One for the night. But hurrying Vandegrift into mistakes, hitting him. He was able to break some tackles and make some plays with his legs. That was something Kentucky tried to make an emphasis on. I believe after the South Carolina game, when they kind of got blown out, they wanted to start using Vandegrift's legs more. You could really see it here in the Florida game. We'll get into stats here in just a bit there. Probably should have had a little more sacks, but the pressure was there, making Vandegrift uncomfortable. He wasn't not going to beat you with his legs anyway. So, yeah, okay, he can make all those plays he wants. Florida's defense doing a good job early on. Gators take over at their own 20 later on. A gain of 9 for Ball on a run and a 15-yard hands to the face on Kentucky. A good cutback run there by Ball. So Ball's at Florida 44. 2nd 9 at their own 45. Lagway, read keeper, goes for 8. Then you had a 3rd and 1 read and a keeper for Lagway. That goes left edge for 21 yards all the way down to the 22. Had a couple of ball runs, one where he shakes a Kentucky defender out of his socks. That sets up a 3rd and 2 at the 14. Florida driving again into the first quarter at this point. A run left for Ball gets absolutely stuffed there at 3rd and 2. So, yeah, this was hard to get away from what Kentucky has shown in recent years, and another red zone stop for the Gators offense, not being able to put it in. So settle for another field goal. 6-0 Gators. Red zone still an issue. So Kentucky, on their own 16. Florida having to settle for field goals. Vandegrift had a keeper for 11. And then a Wilcox run for 25 yards to the Florida 48. And then having to settle for field goals put you down here. Kentucky runs a flea flicker. 45-yard touchdown to Berrien Brown. Looks like Jason Marshall was supposed to be on him. Of course, flea flicker, trick play, gets sucked up into the run play or fake run. Extra points missed, so the game's tied at 6. That would be about it. Be about it for Kentucky. Of course, they crawl back in later on. Florida gets the ball, starts at their own 20. After 2 straight incompletions, it's 3rd and 10. Lagway escapes the sack, can't find anyone. 3 and out for the Gators, and you wondered, this was one more time Florida could have, we're talking about the word momentum, and Billy Napier all the time, not necessarily being able to hold on to it. So, should have been more than 6-0. Kentucky ties it at 6. You go 3 and out. Ball, and Kentucky gets the ball back. Kentucky gets to a 3rd and 1, and this is one reason I do like going almost drive by drive, because you get a story of the game, and you start seeing the trenches come into play for Florida a little bit more. This would have been situations where Kentucky would have taken advantage of Florida in recent years. But if the defense hadn't improved, they would have continued to do so. Well, Kentucky gets to a 3rd and 1 at the 25. Quarterback sneak gets blown up for no gain. Des Watson right in the middle of it. George comes in on it too. Kentucky had a 3rd and 1. They're forced to punt. Gators ball on their own 35. Man, Jadan Baugh almost breaks one to the left. He had one guy to beat. Gained 8 instead, but you saw it right there. It had a big run in sight. He had one guy to beat there. So 2nd and 2 at that point at the 43, and Lagway goes deep to Elijah Badger, down to the 7. A gain of 50 for the Gators. Ball runs it in on the next play for the touchdown. His first of the game. Certainly not his last. So at that point, you started to see it. That's 2 explosive passing plays for the Gators offense against a defense that wasn't giving them up. 13-6 Gators. Kentucky gets the ball. They face a 3rd and 5 from their own 41. Gators with 6 up on the line. 3rd and 5. As I said, they put Brock Vandegrift in these situations a good bit. 3rd and 5 from their own 41 is Kentucky. Gators with 6 up on the line. They only rush 4. Ball's tipped. Triquez Bridges. Huge game for Triquez Bridges. I don't know what else happened in the SEC, but when you go look at his stats and what he did and gets this interception, certainly should be in conversation for SEC Player of the Week. He gets that interception. Gators ball at their own 46. You love to take advantage here. And, the mistake from Lagway. Gives it right back. He attempts to find DK, who wasn't even looking. Interception return all the way to the Florida 11. And this sequence, the few drives before this, the drive coming up, this was a sequence of drives I think really has to be talked about because it does tell the story of the game. Kentucky returns all the way back to the Florida 11. So they're in business. They get to a 3rd and 2 at the 3. Castell gets the first hit in the backfield, tackle for loss by Des Watson. Des Watson, I tell you, in short yardage plays early in this game, made his presence felt. And not just a run stuffer. He was making tackles, making plays. Kentucky's going for it. You have to in this situation. 4th and 1 at the 2, and they are stuffed. This was when you kind of knew it was going to be a little bit different for Florida's defense against Kentucky this time. Short yardage situations, they come through. This is where Florida had been owned by the Wildcats in recent history. Not this night in the Swamp. 4th and 1, they're stuffed. Jack Pyburn in the backfield for the tackle. Defense showing up short yardage situations. So the Gators take over at their own 2. 4:24 left in the first half at this point. Jadan Baugh gets a hole up the middle. He scampers for 27 yards to the 29. Then the very next play, Lagway finds Badger again for 58 yards down to the 13. Another explosive pass. A couple plays later, Jadan Baugh runs left for a 10-yard touchdown. Cam Waits is just bulldozing people with this one, if I'm remembering this play right. But yeah, Cam Waits on the left side. Certainly, you just see him shoot upfield. 98-yard scoring drive for the Gators. Gators in business here. Another touchdown there. Oh, 20-6 for the Gators. 20-6. So next drive, here we go. Another tip drill, interception. This time, Jadan Baugh takes it all the way down to the 1-yard line. Almost got it in. Almost a pick six. Gators take over. 1:46 left. It's another ball touchdown from a yard out. 3 touchdowns, all in the first half at this point for Jadan Baugh. 27-6 Gators. Well, Kentucky wouldn't be done scoring, unfortunately. Special teams mistake here for the Gators. Kentucky makes something happen. Ensuing kickoff return. They return at 99 yards for the touchdown after the extra point, 27-13. Minute and a half left in the first half. So Florida had, you saw it with DJ Lagway all in the first half, been pretty aggressive in passing the ball down the field. Gators take over on 25, minute and a half left in the first half. Get pretty conservative, 2 straight runs to get the 3rd and 4 at the 31. Kentucky calls a timeout with 22 seconds left. Lagway keeper loses 2. Another Kentucky timeout with 17 seconds left. Pretty conservative approach there by Napier. And maybe after the Lagway interception earlier, probably thought you could get to halftime without giving up another score to Kentucky with not a whole lot of time left. So punt in the first quarter pretty much. I saw a lot of people talking about it. And seeing how Florida was able to hit some explosives of why you get so conservative there, but all for naught. Didn't really matter. 27-13, Florida at halftime. 313 to 157-yard edge for the Gators at halftime. 161 yards rushing for the Gators, 99 for Kentucky. 152 passing for Florida, 58 for Kentucky. Florida was getting 8.2 yards per play compared to Kentucky's 5.6. Kentucky with 2 turnovers, Florida with 1 in the first half. And crazy stat line for DJ Lagway at halftime. 4 for 11, 152 yards in the interception, 40 rushing yards as well. Jadan Baugh, 14 attempts, 88 yards at halftime, 3 touchdowns. The kickoff return for Kentucky really making it closer than it should be. And then you could kind of see at this point, too, another sign for the defense. Maybe turning that corner, creating turnovers, short yardage stops. So Kentucky, second half here, long drives to start the second half. Now, Vandegrift has a draw, I believe, that was probably audible too there. If I'm remembering that play right. It took him a while to get to that play. It was a 3rd and 2, a Vandegrift draw right there. Pup Howard with the stuff. So no, never mind. That was later on. So Vandegrift draw gets it to 3rd and 2. That's right. The draw was before that. So it's 3rd and 2. Pup Howard gets the stuff on 3rd and 2. It was his first tackle of the day. And Kentucky's going for it on 4th and 2. Play action pass, wide open for a gain of 21 to the Florida 35. 3rd and 8 a couple of plays later at the Florida 33. In route complete to Berrien for a gain of 19 down to the 14. So see Kentucky driving at this point. And unfortunately, Jason Marshall goes down. An apparent shoulder injury here. Does not look good. We saw him come back out of the locker room later on. They were certainly taking care of him for a good bit there on the sideline after the play. So maybe we'll get some more word. Florida's off, get a bye week this week. We know Napier not too open about injuries anyway. He'll talk Wednesday in the SEC teleconference. Won't know if we'll get much there for Jason Marshall, but certainly doesn't look good at the moment. So Kentucky's driving at this point. 1st and goal from the 3. The Wildcats score on 2nd and goal. And now we have a score 27-20. After Florida had been up 27-6, had the kickoff return, and then Kentucky scores on a very long drive after halftime. So kind of a middle 8 disaster there for Florida. 12 plays, 75-yard drive for Kentucky that took 8:34 off the clock. This is pretty much the only drive they were kind of staying on the field, converting to 3rd downs. To start the second half, though, taking 8.5 minutes off the clock pretty much. I mean, your typical Mark Stoops drive. I mean, Mark Stoops would want every drive in history of his football team to look like that one. Gators need to seize momentum back, and they do. 2nd and 8 at the 25. Lagway finds DK for 23 on that long crosser to the Florida 48. I mean, most of DK's passes come on that. And I just love that route. It's not stopped yet. As long as you have that quarterback time to throw. And we saw that throw. We saw that pass attempted a few times in the game. Some dangerous throws, but nothing too crazy. But eventually it broke through right here. Lagway finds DK for 23, all the way down to about midfield for the Gators. And before we move on there, well, let's go. 3rd and 5 at Kentucky 47. Lagway finds DK again, wide open for a catch and run for a gain of 44 yards down to the 3. Ball tackle for a loss of 2 on the next play. Then Lagway drops back to pass and then scrambles down to the 1. And what looked like a touchdown possibly. But the ball was in Lagway's left hand. It never crosses the goal line as it gets out of bounds. 3rd and goal from the 1. I formation, which we saw. I like that little wrinkle Florida added into the offense here. Get a little I formation. And in a scrum, Jadan Baugh scores his 4th touchdown in the game. 34-20 at Florida. Kentucky had seized momentum. It was time for Florida to get it back. 8-play, 77-yard drive. This took 5 minutes off the clock, so the second half's flying by here. Not really sure if this one was a touchdown. Like I said, it was a scrum. You couldn't really see. The refs called it one. Replay didn't show that it really wasn't. We'll just take the refs' word for this one. But look, after what we had seen in the first half, after what we had seen on this drive, and what we had seen all season, how big were the pickups of Elijah Badger and Chimere DK? I don't know where this offense, where this receiving core would be without those two guys. And you guys know how high I was on getting Badger late in the portal. That I thought he would, what we're seeing is what I thought he would be, what I thought he could be, how much he would help the room altogether. DK would probably still be doing some of the same things he's been doing, but I think those guys together, Trey Wilson had the deep explosive in the first drive of the game too. But still, it's these two guys right now that are the main cogs in this receiver room. And man, I mean, explosive plays, catch and run ability, physical play. Love add that into Ricky Pearsall the last couple of years. I mean, Florida has nailed the wide receiver transfer portal so far. So Kentucky gets the ball back. They take over with 3:37 left in the third quarter. And on 25, it's 3rd and 9 at the 26. Florida brings pressure as Kentucky holds up. It's a gain of 10. 3rd down again a couple plays later. This time 8 to go to the Florida 38. Florida brings pressure again. Vandegrift escapes for a gain of 9. So it gets the first down by a yard. On this drive, they were just getting the first downs by a yard. Another first down for Kentucky down to the 47 in the third quarter. We're the boys' time. Won't back down time. Another Kentucky first down to the Florida 38. Then you give Gates, who played a wonderful game, with a tackle for loss on a Kentucky run. Then it's 2nd and 14 from the 42 and another gain of 13. So it's 3rd and 1 for Kentucky at the 29. They barely get that as they bring in their Wildcat quarterback, Wimsat. He gets the first down. But later on, it's 3rd and 6 at the Florida 24. Gates stretches the play out. Devin Moore on the tackle for a gain of 1. So now it's 4th and 5. So good 3rd down play there for the Gators. There's a gain of 1. Setting up a 4th and 5. You get a swing pass to the running back, and Bridges is right there for the tackle. Right away. Only a gain of 1. Great play by him. Beating his man. Getting to the ball carrier. As I said, if I'd have to look around the SEC and see what somebody else did, but Bridges, if he's announced as the SEC Defensive Player of the Week, he absolutely earned it. So Gators take over at this point, over on their own 22, 10:35 left in the game, up 34-20. You're feeling pretty good about it now. Gave up some yards, but a lot of time taken off the clock. If this is what Kentucky's game plan, if this is what Kentucky was going to do, a comeback was not very likely. So Florida gets the ball, a couple of Jacoby Jackson runs, set up a 3rd and 2 at the 30. And I love it. It's 3rd and 2. I think we all expected Billy Napier to come out and call another run. No. I mean, up by 14, what do we all think Billy Napier was probably going to do? Surprisingly, Lagway drops back to pass. This time he's sacked. So I know I set you up for that one. But we see it again later on. But still, I like the call. First of all, 3rd and 2 at your own 30. As I said, surprisingly, Lagway drops back. But first of all, for Billy Napier to call it in that situation and to trust Lagway to do it. I like it. It didn't work this time. It will work later on. But I like the aggressiveness right there. I like the going against the tendency of what we have seen so many times. I think Billy Napier's starting to trust, hey, I mean, this is the offense he wants to run. He did. Graham Mertz held it back as far as the explosive plays go. Billy Napier wants to take the shots. Now, granted, we can debate on how. I know a lot of people kind of point to there's only, a two-man route. And one's deep, one's short, or however it happens. You may not have to like how Florida takes the deep shots. But Billy Napier, he wants to take the shots. And I like to hear. So Kentucky takes over with about 8 minutes left in the game at their own 35. 14-yard pass to the 49. Then a running back screen to Sumo Carnbay for 11 to the 40. Then you get the only sack of the game, TJ Searcy, for a loss of 1 on 2nd down. So it's 3rd and 11 at the Florida 41. 6 minutes left in the game. Pass is incomplete. 4th and 11. Vandegrift throws it out toward the sideline. That is broken up by Aaron Gates. Another great play by him. Gators take over at their own 41. 5:50 left. And, okay, we feel pretty good. That should do it. Kentucky ain't going to score. So 3rd and 8 at their own 43. Lagway's passing one more time. This is the one I was talking about. Finds Badger deep down the left sideline. A gain of 40 to the Kentucky 17. Billy Napier could have, if we're going to criticize him, we'll give him credit right here for being aggressive. We'll see ultimately what it all means. But being aggressive in this situation, trusting your quarterback, and pretty much right here erases anything for Kentucky. Next play, ball runs down to the 1 on a gain of 16. Ball finds the end zone on the next play for his 5th touchdown of the game, all in his very first start. 41-20 Gators at this point. Oh, but Florida wasn't done. And maybe one of the... No, this probably was. Better feel-good moments, but probably the top feel-good moment of the night. Kentucky gets the ball back. Backup quarterback Cutter Boley. His first attempt. He drops back. And lo and behold, Cormani McClain makes his appearance. Pick 6 for Cormani McClain. 48-20 Gators. The whole team is going crazy. Coming off the sideline. Congratulating him going into the crowd. Congratulating him right there in the end zone. Florida gets called for flags, but who cares? Florida's going to win this game. And what a moment. What a moment for the team. But what a moment for Cormani McClain. Didn't know necessarily how much he would play this year because, but now Florida's facing some injuries in the secondary at the corner spot. This is late in the game anyway. And got that 4 game. Who knows how much he'll play? And maybe they're trying to get his red shirt. But like we said, now with Jason Marshall, Florida's facing some injury concerns back there. But great to see with all the hoopla and all the criticism. Like I was all for bringing Cormani McClain here at Florida. We all know the issues previously. We don't have to rehash that. But at the same time, I'm all for second chances. And it's not like, what he was being accused of, could not be fixed. Was all that bad in the first place? Yes, there was a locker room concern, but we knew the situation. He was going to have to earn his playing time, earn his roster spot on this program. Well, gets thrusted into action against Kentucky. Game's in hand, of course. It doesn't matter. First time we see him out there, boom, finds himself in the end zone with a pick six. 3:21 left in the game. Pretty much it. That was 48-20 Gators right there. And there's your game. There's your game. But really good, feel-good moment there at the end. You could tell it meant a lot to him. You could tell it meant a lot to the team to have, a player that they really had to, I think, have a serious conversation about. Do you want to give him that chance? And I know there was like a leadership meeting when all that stuff, and there have been certain parameters for Cormani McLean. Well, man, it was good to see it. And, hopefully that's a sign of things to come. Hopefully that's just, the camaraderie that you saw there. I think it was just another example of, how close this team is. And I hope that means better results coming up in the month of November. But I'm not going to, one more time, kind of going back to the beginning of this episode, I'm not going to question a whole lot about the mindset, the moxie of this team. This team is better. That doesn't necessarily mean Florida has to go out there and go dominate in November. Florida can be a better team and still go struggle against that schedule in November because a lot of other teams would. Like, that's not a pass. You guys know where I'm at on Florida. They are a better team. They are a close team. They are a team that's coming together, is together in a lot of ways. What does that do down the stretch? On Saturday night against Kentucky, it meant a lot. It meant a 48-20 victory. All right, let's get into some notes. Here, let me find those. So, in his first career start, and if you're watching me on YouTube, you can definitely tell that page is white because, boom, got the big old computer screen and another light source there. So, in his first career start, of course, true freshman Jadan Baugh scored the first 5 rushing touchdowns of his career, finished 22 carries, 106 yards, his first career 100-yard game as well. Ball's 5 rushing touchdowns are tied for the most in program history with some pretty big names. Trey Burton against Kentucky in 2010 and Tim Tebow versus South Carolina in 2007. And are the most by a Gator in his first career start. That's pretty great company there. Trey Burton, Tim Tebow, and then being the first or the most ever by a Gator in his first career start. Ball became the first Florida true freshman with at least 3 rushing touchdowns in a game since Trey Burton also against that Kentucky game as well. So the 5 ties a true freshman record. Ball was the first Florida true freshman running back with multiple rushing touchdowns in a game since Malik Davis in 2017 versus Vanderbilt. Oh, man, good stuff. Lagway, second career start, of course, this time first one in the SEC, 259 yards, 1 interception, 7 of 14 passing, finished with a 191.1 rating. And pretty interesting here when you want to take it when you take a look at it. Let me see, try and get this up here. Just go through the quarterback progression here for DJ Lagway. Pop it up on the screen for you. But you see here, started 0 for 1 and then a 40-yard completion. Missed his next 2, then a 4-yard completion. 2 of 5 at that point. Missed his next 3, and then hits a 50-yarder. He's 3 of 9 at that point. Then throws the interception on his next throw. So he's 3 of 10 the point he threw an interception. And then he finished the game 4 of 4 with a 58-yarder, a 23-yarder, a 44-yarder, and a 40-yarder. Very interesting ways it played out for DJ Lagway. And definitely look much different than a Graham Mertz-led offense. No screens left or right. He had no attempts at or behind the line of scrimmage. Now, that's something else we see incorporated into the offense. Now, we know Lagway. A little different. We'll look high to low. We'll look for the big play first. But also, it's the play calls, too. They're going to be a little bit different. As I said, Napier wants to throw the ball down the field. But no attempts at or behind the line of scrimmage. No, check downs could come into play there as well. And maybe, some of those incompletions, maybe the interception as well. But that was like a miscommunication between him and DK. That's not going to be a common occurrence, I don't think. Especially as the more experience he gets. And we've seen him do it before, too. So that was just the way this game played out. Short passing, 3 attempts in the 1 to 5 yard range. He was 1 of 3 there. Mid-range passing, 0 for 4. 0 for 2 to the left, 0 for 2 to the right. And then deep passes, 15-plus yards, 6 of 9 down the field, 67% for 255 yards. 2 of 4 mid-left, 2 of 2 down the middle, 2 of 3 mid-right. So there's your breakdown for DJ Lagway. Take a look at the comparison stats here. Florida 476 to 309 total yard edge. Florida with 197 total yards rushing, 197 rushing. 4.5, 4.5 yards per rush for the Gators. 5 rushing touchdowns, of course. Jadan Baugh going beast mode. Total net passing yards, 279 for the Gators. Aiden Warner come in later on as well. Average yard per completion, 34.9. Feast or famine, boom or bust, however you want to define it. But that's what explosive plays can do for you. Even in an inconsistent night for DJ Lagway, you make up for it and getting the ball down the field. So Florida can find some answers in the red zone, can still find a run game to lean on because this offense is getting opened up. So against some opponents, you'll be able to kind of feast or famine your way through it, especially as long as the run game's there. I think a good starting point for what you want to see as far as explosiveness goes and the capability of that part of this offense. Florida ran 59 total plays. A lot of that because of the explosives as well. Not marching down the field a good bit. Not going to do that much against Kentucky. So you needed to hit the explosives. 68 total plays for Kentucky. Florida also playing into that, the pick 6, the interceptions, giving really good field position for the Gators. Florida, 8.1 yards per play, 4.5 for Kentucky. In the red zone, 7 of 7 for the Gators. 5 rushing touchdowns. Third downs, 6 of 12 for the Gators, 4 of 13 for Kentucky. And like I said, that was in the second half, really, for Kentucky. Nick De La Torre, I know in one of his articles, I pointed it out there. Through 4 games for the Gators defense, it was the worst third down unit in the SEC, allowing 46.5%. Much better against Kentucky. Held Kentucky to 4 of 13 on third down. Kentucky was 0 for 5 in the first half. So over the last 3 games for Florida, Nick points out Florida's opponents are just 12 of 40, 30% on third down. So 30% over the last 3 games. It was at 46.5 coming in to that first bye week. Through those first 4 games. Big turnaround there for the Gator defense in one more category. There for defense here. Let's see. Tackles for loss, 3 for the Gators, 8 for Kentucky. It was just really standing up for a lot of sort of no gains for the Gator defense in their short yardage situations. Tackles for loss early on in the game certainly made a huge difference. Not a lot overall, but like I said, 7 quarterback hurries for the Gators defense. So a lot of simulated pressures, a lot of stacking the line against Brock Vandegrift. He didn't know where the pressure was coming from. Didn't know who was dropping back. Some of those interceptions, tip passes. So, zinging them in there. Receivers not being able to catch up with them. maybe question their ability to catch the ball. But Florida in position to take advantage of those. But 7 quarterbacks hurries there. And I said Vandegrift made some good plays with his legs as well. Oh, and the 3 interceptions there for the Gators, too. One more time, Lagway, 7 of 14, 259, 1 interception. Looking at receiving, if we go into the just of course how it played out for Florida. 3 catches for Elijah Badger, 148 yards. And I pointed out last week, and I pointed out him and Chimere DK of their yards per catch. They were the only 2 in the SEC, I believe, for the Gators in the top 10. The only Florida was the only school that had 2 guys in the top 10, I believe. Badger 3 for 148, along with 58. Chimere DK 2 catches, 67 yards. Badger was targeted 4 times. DK targeted 5 times. Trey Wilson only targeted twice. As I said, we looked at the draft. We looked at the chart there for DJ Lagway. Not a lot of shorts. Had the 1 deep pass to Wilson. Wilson on only 1 catch for that 40-yarder on the first drive of the game. So maybe correlation there of nothing short and not a lot of Trey Wilson. So we'll see how that evolves. I think that's something. While I love Badger and DK as well, try to find a way to get Wilson a little more involved. Florida rushing, Jadan Baugh, 22 attempts, 106 yards, 5 touchdowns. DJ Lagway, I pointed out in the preview last week something I wanted to see was he did throw the 1 interception, but he was able to keep plays alive, able to escape pressure, and then use his legs also. He didn't have to force things. If it's not there, use your legs, go get out of bounds, go slide down. He had 10 attempts, 46 yards. Like he was sacked, so that plays into it as well. And then Jacoby Jackson, 9 attempts, 44 yards. Cam Carroll, good to see him. Good to see him out there. Of course, the game well in hand, but fighting through injury last year. Pretty bad injury there for Cam Carroll. You see Ball, you see Jackson taking the bulk of the carries. No Trayon Webb getting carries in this game either. So it's the Ball and Jackson show there for Florida at rushing. When the game in hand, great to see Cam Carroll out there getting some carries. Triquez Bridges, as I said, certainly to me, should be in consideration for SEC Player of the Week on the defensive side of the football. 10 total tackles, 5 of them solo, 1 interception. Had the great tackle on that 4th and 5 swing pass to stop a Kentucky drive in the second half. Jack Pyburn, career high, 8 total tackles. He had 4 of them solo. As I said, 1 in the short yardage situation, the goal line to go situation for Kentucky. Jack Pyburn coming up big. Shamar James, Devin Moore, both with 7 tackles. Grayson Howard, Aaron Gates, Jaden Robinson, 4 tackles. And just there's 3 guys there. Certainly making their presence felt. At linebacker, Howard and Robinson playing really well. So like I said, Shamar James too. Florida's linebacker played much better. And Jaden Robinson just really coming along. One player that we kind of identified during the Gators' first bye week. You'd see in limited action up to that point, his tackle numbers. Well, it's just continued. And he's really, really playing well out there for a second-year linebacker. Grayson Howard as well, of course. Aaron Gates with some impactful plays. Him and Bridges there in that backfield, man. I tell you, I like that combo. I like that tandem. Aggressive play. And just we can't overlook it, the tackling. And you see it from both those guys. Tackling overall much better. Jordan Castell with 3. Des Watson with 3, as I've mentioned. Very integral in those short yardage situations for the Gator defense against a Kentucky offense that had, for the past years, taken advantage of Florida in that situation. Des Watson played a massive role in Kentucky not being able to get anything going early. Good stuff there for the Gator defense. One more impressive performance. Let's see. Away for Kentucky, Brock Vandegrift, 12 of 26, 165, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Boley, I said, come in through the pick 6 to Komani McLean. Dan Key, you could tell was the focal point. As you know, we Adam said last week, Adam Luckett of Kentucky Sports Radio, when our preview had mentioned, look, the passing game is going to go through Dane Key. And you could tell they targeted him 13 times. They only have 4 catches. 4 for 48. Targeted 13 times. Berrien Brown, 2 catches, 56 yards, had the 1 touchdown. Rushing, we went through earlier, highlighting there. Sumo Kongbe, only 10 attempts for 39 yards, 3.9 yard average. But Berrien Brown had that, had the touchdown on the flea flicker. Good stuff. Good stuff there for the Gator defense. All right. There we go. But guys, enjoyed that look through? All right. Let's get back to the comments. Ooh. Going a little bit long this episode. Got caught up in the excitement there. Oh, wow. A lot of comments. So, okay, let's see here. Thank you guys for hopping in here in the middle of the day, Sunday episode, NFL football zone, all that good stuff. Okay, here we go. Yeah, Scott 20 did say, and I don't remember if I said this. The defense had some great open field tackles and clutch moments. Absolutely. As I said, the Bridges one really, really stands out there. And they're just playing good as a unit too. You see a lot more. Don't get me wrong. You see what you need to see in a lot of one-on-one situations too. And it's kind of going to your open field tackles, but also a lot of guys around the ball. Look, those interceptions don't happen if the guys are not in their spots. Guys doing what they're supposed to do, being around the ball. Not every interception is going to be the Cormani. I can't even tell you the last time we've seen an interception like the one Cormani McLean had, where you just make a good play on the quarterback. But at the same time, balls are bouncing off of Kentucky's receivers. Guys are in position to make the play. But also, game tackling, pursuit to the ball. You see it all better with this defense right now. Casual Carolina Fishing says, now getting to a bowl game is a real possibility. Should beat FSU. And they only need to find one more win. Yeah, we got plenty of time to get into that, but that will certainly be what we'll kind of concentrate on the next week or so with the bye week coming up, is looking toward the rest of the season for Florida. We'll see what next week holds for the SEC and what we learn about teams. But, yeah, should beat FSU. Absolutely should. We can safely say that. Florida should beat FSU at the end of the year. That game might, if you find one more win before that game is going to come down maybe to finding bowl eligibility. But you are going to have to steal one from Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss. It's been a crazy year so far. It's not out of the realm of possibility. No, certainly. No matter what we saw against Miami, no matter what we saw against Texas A&M, no matter what we saw against Tennessee, we can see it. This has been a pretty crazy year in the SEC so far. College football in general, of course. But there's a lot of teams grouped together. And we've seen it just with the how Florida played Tennessee. As I said, they're not a better version of themselves right now. But Kentucky's a perfect example so far, too. Blown out by South Carolina, a win over Ole Miss, playing Georgia down to the wire. Mississippi State, Texas A&M, tough game yesterday. So there's a bunch of teams, Missouri and old Auburn in a slobber knocker type of game. So these games are coming down to plays being made in clutch situations. Plays being made when the game is so tight at the end of the game. Somebody's got to make a play. So the possibility is going to be there. It is going to be there. George getting in here. Imagine a narrative after we beat Georgia. Well, George, that is a narrative I will welcome. I will welcome that. Okay, let's keep it going. Kevin Reed, defense and offensive line has shown great improvement. Both needed to be fixed. Yeah, I didn't mean to overlook the offensive line. They're certainly open up. And I mentioned Cam Waits earlier on a run, but Kentucky hadn't been able to be run on. Not many teams run on them, especially a Billy Napier offense the last couple of years. Holes were there. Florida won the trench battle. Florida won the trench battle against Kentucky, something we haven't been able to say. Now, certainly a lot more I want to look at on replay of a game. Of course, didn't get home until like 2 o'clock in the morning. Put a couple articles out on gatorsbreakdown.com. Haven't been able to watch a replay yet, but stats bear it out. We see the explosiveness. We know how that can translate in opening up this run. Teams can't just focus on stacking the box and stopping a Florida run attack. They've got to be cognizant of Florida opening up the offense, going down the field. That's good. And we've seen it all year with Lagway anyway. When he's in, you've seen the run offense open up. That helps the offensive line. Michael Martin brings up a good point. We can discuss, how this win impacts Napier, the outlook for this season, what it means for his tenure a bit. Like I said earlier, it certainly puts it in play where, without this win, you weren't, the path of coming back was very slim. Is there a world, Michael Martin says, where our team improves week to week and Billy is still fired? There is a world because of what the schedule is. As I said, Florida is a better team. Florida can get better and still lose to Georgia. Florida can get better and still lose to Texas, Ole Miss, and LSU. There are good teams in their own way. If those teams play their best at the same time, Florida's best probably isn't good to beat those teams. But Florida plays better like they have. Florida continues to improve. One of those teams has an off week, or you force an off week. You do your job and just dominate in some form or fashion. That possibility is there, kind of like we just discussed. But going to your point, there is a world where the team improves week to week and Billy's still fired. That world exists. I do think this team is getting better. But the schedule is very tough coming up. You're still looking at Florida's not going to be favored in any of those 4 games. Unless, I still don't see it. Even if Ole Miss collapses, even with 2 losses already, if they collapse, probably still favored in the swamp later in the season. But Florida's not going to be favored until they play Florida State again. So if it plays out that way, now we know it doesn't have to. UCF was favored. Florida blows them out. Kentucky was favored. Florida blows them out. So you don't have to follow the script. But if it does, and you only win the games that you're going to be favored in, well, that's only FSU. So Florida can be better. It will be better. They're still going to be underdogs in those 4 games against Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, and LSU. Adam Maurer. The defense over the bye week flipped the switch that they couldn't stop a nosebleed at the start of the season and now look elite. It's crazy. Yep. That side of the ball, that's why we see Florida being a better team. As I said, much better test coming up. The same can be said for them. They are a better defense. They absolutely are. They've had the fortune of playing some very one-dimensional offenses the last 3 weeks. They've taken advantage where they should. They have gotten better in run defense to take advantage of those teams. Now some more balanced attacks coming up. How do they defend it now? It's a bit different. It is a bit different coming up now. I'm excited to see it. Like, they're going to be a competitive defense now. Now, Jason Marshall's injury, man, he's playing his best ball as a Gator. How much will that affect the defense now? Because now you're going to play some better teams that can pass the ball a bit better. No doubt about it. You're going to. So, how much will his injury play a factor in the rest of the season? Kings of Code, DJ Lagway's arm talent and effort to push the ball down the field auto-corrected Napier's conservative play calling. I guess that's a good way of putting it. That's a good way of putting it. Bruce Green, Lagway is a game changer. Yep, absolutely. You see, and look, he's only going to get better. Now, got some good defenses coming up too. Georgia, Texas, really good defensive teams. Ole Miss, a good defensive team. LSU, they're getting better too on defense. Still, when you look at that 4-game stretch, will probably be the easier of the defenses so far. But how much can he grow when he starts playing these better defenses? I think that's something to watch. Certainly something to watch there for Lagway's growth. But certainly, Kentucky was a good defense too, and we saw what happened. So how consistent can that deep ball be? How much better can he get into the intermediate range? That's what we're going to be looking for. I think as those steps for DJ Lagway. Limit the turnovers. Be smart. I won't say limit, but be smart with the plays with your legs. Don't put yourselves in harm situation when you don't have to. But that's what is the draw to DJ Lagway. You don't want to take that away. And I'm a big believer. You heard me say many a time, you don't coach scared because of injuries. Your job is to win games. Your job is to win games. Now, there is a threshold there. Don't get me wrong. You don't coach recklessly. There's a difference. But for Lagway himself, and design passes, when you can take care of yourself, when you can take care of the ball, it's going to go a long way. He's got a lot of growing up to do, and I'm excited to see it because we what did we say? Will and I have talked about it, and it's not a unique thought here. There's a floor for DJ Lagway, but the ceiling is so much higher. Just week by week, raise that floor a little bit. And that's just the little things of football that he's just going to learn along the way. There's still going to be a whole lot of ups and downs with DJ Lagway. But he is a game changer. And the Kentucky game was a great example of that. Yeah, Jay Cart does bring up a good point. How about Cormani? Could be a valuable piece down the road. Yeah, certainly. I mean, this was his first action. And it was up. He had the pick six right away. And then the very next drive, you saw, some mistakes. You're going to see it. I'm not asking him to be perfect. That's not what I mean by any means. But yeah, another player, if Florida's going to be fighting the injuries there in the defensive backfield, Florida may have to rely on a bit more than they had planned. You certainly like to see, much like we say for DJ Lagway, the growth from a young player like Cormani. Florida's got to stay healthy back there, though, right now. I mean, that is, let's see. If I can find the last injury report, it might take me a second. But let's go. Florida would have released one yesterday. Here we go. Because we know Jakeem Jackson's being listed as out. And so let's just go through the injury list and, why the Jason Marshall injury is really, really standing out for Florida right now. Because you had Jakeem Jackson, who was out. Asa Turner, out. So we'll see, what that means. So, more Jakeem Jackson. We'll see what that ends up being for Florida down the road at the cornerback spot. That's mainly what we're talking about here with Jason Marshall going down. So, Dijon Johnson. Devin Moore, I mean, I shouldn't overlook him. He had the interception in the game versus Kentucky. Played really well. Played it really, really well. So, a player we were expecting big things coming in to this year, and you're seeing steps from him now as well. So you certainly want to look more at rewatch of defensive back play, making up for Jason Marshall, who it does look like he's going to be out for quite some time. I hope his career's not over at Florida. I hope this isn't a season ender. Playing his best ball. I want to see him more in orange and blue. But certainly raising his draft stock in the money season for Jason Marshall. But yeah, we'll see about how much more we see Cormani McClain. Gator Phil, talented quarterbacks cover up a ton of flaws. Woody Michael, he says DJ Lagway is the reason why the team is playing hard. He's a true leader. I mean, they were playing hard versus Tennessee last week too, and Lagway wasn't starting. Now I don't know, if you're going that far with it about the starting part of it, but I mean, is that part of it? Maybe, but I think they're playing hard anyway. Kings of Co. I can't wait to hear what Tebow has to say about DJ Lagway now. He believed Mertz was the better quarterback to lead Florida. in some, we've had this conversation all season ever since Mertz went down against Miami and Lagway starts versus Samford. We all saw the potential there. And look, in some ways, Graham Mertz is better. In some ways, a maybe more safer, consistent offense, but we knew the limitations. And I think against Kentucky, in what we saw in the preview, a Graham Mertz style of offense against Kentucky would have worried me. It really would have worried me. Lagway being able to stretch the field, take them out of really what they want to do on defense. Credit one more time for offensive line, giving DJ Lagway time to get those balls down the field. But if not, those plays not working doesn't really change much for the Gator offense. But yeah, I mean, and we talked about it last week. There was a lot of good things Graham Mertz did. But there's going to be a lot of situations where DJ Lagway's ability is going to make this offense better. Let's see. Good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Lots of comments, so sorry for the... Josh Groover says, Seth and Bud said on their pod, yep, Seth Varnador, Bud Davis, good friends of those guys, said on their pod that it looks like Ron Roberts started calling plays as of late. I'm assuming that you mean Austin Armstrong started, but that's not the case. It is Ron Roberts calling the plays. Certainly, from what I've been told, Austin Armstrong a lot more involved, but still the play calls coming from Ron Roberts up in the booth. That was a change there of Armstrong on the sideline, Roberts in the booth. We'd love to know the exact effect. We tried to pepper Billy Napier with those questions last week, non-committal on who's actually calling the plays and all that, but and the dynamic of how having Armstrong on the sideline, but certainly seems to help this defense. Okay. Muddy Waters. Seems like a large portion of the fan base is supporting and want Napier back. Come on. Let's see how he does during this gauntlet. Yeah, this gauntlet's going to be the tell. I mean, I don't think, especially after a week of how we lost last week against Tennessee, this Kentucky game should not sway you one way or the other. If it does, okay, that's fine. That's you. It's not going to sway me of saving Billy Napier's job. There's a lot more that needs to be done. But, as I said, he had to have this one. Certainly had a lot of fun there. Florida Reptile 01 does bring up a good point, but I think a lot of us have said this at the same time. Fan base may also be looking at the replacement candidates and see how flawed they all are. There ain't nobody perfect out there. There's not. And that goes for most coaching cycles, by the way. But, yeah, certainly. There's warts for everybody out there. Anthony Robinson probably says it the best. This fan base just wants to win. If Napier can start winning, then I would listen to keeping Napier another year. Yeah, this next month's huge. Okay, there we go. Then Muddy Waters brings up a point that I was going to bring up and something I will be concentrating on the next couple of weeks. It happened the first year too. Last year, they were 5-2 and collapsed. Year before, 6-3 and collapsed. Now 4-3 before the toughest stretch. Now he goes on to say ... regression. We'll see. But it certainly points brought up that November, starting with Georgia, and then the rest of the season has not been too kind to Billy Napier in year one and year two. I certainly would love to buck the trend, buck the expectations, and go crazy in November. What a story that'd be. Okay, there we go. a lot more comments. We'd be here for hours if I kept going through. Guys, thanks for leaving them up in the live chat. Glad you guys are having fun with it. Let's have some good conversation going on in there. Kyler Melvin commenting for the first time. Thank you, Dave, for being my favorite Gators media source. Always crush it. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Kyler. Man, it means a lot. As I said, some guys, their families, stop by the tailgate, stop by, say hello, have a good time. I enjoy those conversations. You find out we're all Gators. We all find out how much we care. I'll find out how much it all means to us. And that means a lot to me. You guys stopping by, saying hello. My walk to the stadium, getting stopped by and, having pictures getting taken. I still can't get used to that. That's an angle of this I never will probably get used to. Not one I ever saw coming when I started Gators Breakdown, but the home games mean a lot. Walk by, you see my, a lot of my buddies right there in the front of the stadium in their tent as I make my way into the stadium. But around the Gator Walk, around the front of the stadium area, you guys stopping by, saying hello, taking the photos, having a short conversation as I'm waking my way in. That means a whole lot too. So, like making that walk there, and with some excitement about the Gators there. Okay. As I said, this would keep going forever. One more time. Thanks for blowing up the comment section, guys. If you didn't catch it live, throw some comments in the post episode as well. But the live chat right now, certainly lively. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown right here. 48-20 Gators over Kentucky. Lots to still talk about with this one as we get to the bye week and that crazy November stretch. I'm the host of Gators Breakdown, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gators Breakdown.